So,
Okay,
okay.
we're recording now. I'll share it with you later. Let's see if I can get this over here as soon as there we go. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study with paper 127. That's that the 19th year, the adolescence years of Jesus, and that starts on page 1401 in the original Urantia Book, paragraph 1, or paper 127, section 4, paragraph 1. And the section's called the 19th year, AD 13. So we're ready to go. Let me change the picture here, dear. You can read the first paragraph, and then we'll take turns. This will be like a podcast each.
Okay. 4. The 19th year, AD 13. By this time, Jesus and Mary were getting along much better. She regarded him less as a son. He had become to her more a father to her children. Each day's life swarmed with practical and immediate difficulties. Less frequently they spoke of his life work, for as time passed, all their thought was mutually devoted to the support and upbringing of their family of 4 boys and 3 girls.
So he had his work cut out for him, didn't he, y'all? Let me adjust my microphone a bit here so people can hear me. Okay. Hi, Letch. How you doing tonight?
Hi, how are you?
Good. So he had a full house, didn't he? He had 4 boys and 3 girls to raise, and his mother was living with him, of course. But he became the head of the household, or the father of the household. So that's how he gained experience in being a father himself. That would constitute equal to being the father. All right. Let's see. Let's go around this way. Letch, would you take the next one?
Okay. By the beginning of this year, Jesus had fully won his mother to the acceptance of his methods of child training, the positive injunction to do good in the place of the older Jewish method of forbidding to do evil. In his home and throughout his public teaching career, Jesus invariably employed the positive form of exhortation. Always and everywhere did he say, you that, I can hardly see that.
You shall do this.
You shall do this. You ought to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Never did he employ the negative mode of teaching derived from the ancient taboos. He refrained from placing emphasis on evil by forbidding it, while he exalted the good by commanding its performance. Prayer time in this household was the occasion for discussing anything and everything relating to the welfare of the family.
So they prayed daily, and that gave them the opportunity to have a little family meeting every day too, didn't it?
Roger?
Yeah.
The way I grew up was the old ancient taboo way. Thou shalt not.
Thou shalt not, yeah.
But other than that, it's obvious that his divine personality is starting to come through.
That's true. It is. Yeah. You see a little message here on mine here? Right. Otter's talking to us. Who is? It said Otter is here if you needed to answer a question. Things are getting so amazing, y'all. I'll tell you what, I spent the last 3 days learning AI stuff. I actually made a video of myself from an old picture I had.
Oh gosh, it looks great.
I guess I was about 35 out in the Grand Canyon. And so I just took that picture and took the AI program and animated it just took one of the scripts from one of my chapters of the book, and the book I've been working on, and had it read it to myself for about 5 minutes. And this program actually animated my face, my eyes, my mouth, and you could have swore it was really me talking. It used my own voice, you know. So it's just
Interesting.
It's bizarre.
Yeah.
The amount of things that people are going to be able to do with artificial intelligence is going to be amazing. Did anyone get a chance to read that chapter 7 I sent out this morning?
I read a portion
Did you?
and I thought it was great.
Did you? It's coming out really well. I'm just really surprised. I started reading the first 3 when I did the first 3, and it seems to me when I finished a chapter, I just wanted to go on to the next chapter. So that's the way it should be when you read a book, you know. So
Yeah, I think it's excellent. That's a great idea.
do you,
Yeah.
Letch? I hope, you know, and it's all from the teaching series we did, you know, the 26-week teaching series we did, that I'm drawing all this stuff for the books. So
It's understandable too.
yeah,
It is,
yeah, it comes out pretty good. It's much easier to relate something in text than it is just talking about it straight, you know.
Yes.
So I have to go back and I've tried to tweak it every time I go through it and make changes and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm glad y'all are enjoying it. I'm gonna try to do maybe a chapter a day or every other day or something like that until we get it done. It should be 26 chapters. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see who's next. Rodney, I believe you're next.
Okay. Jesus began wise discipline upon his brothers and sisters at such an early age that little or no punishment was ever required to secure their prompt and wholehearted obedience. The only exception was Jude, upon whom, on sundry occasions, Jesus found it necessary to impose penalties for his infractions of the rules of the home. On 3 occasions, when it was deemed wise to punish Jude for self-confessed and deliberate violations of the family rules of conduct, his punishment was fixed by the unanimous decree of the older children and was assented to by Jude himself before it was inflicted.
So Jesus had a good way of discipline, didn't he? He had,
No kidding.
You break the rules, this is the punishment for it.
Mhm.
So interesting way to raise the children. Okay, while Jesus was methodical and systematic in everything he did, there was also in all of his administrative rulings a refreshing elasticity of interpretation of and an individuality of adaptation that greatly impressed all the children with the spirit of justice, which actuated their father-brother. He never arbitrarily disciplined his brothers and sisters, and such uniform fairness and personal consideration greatly endeared Jesus to all his family. So all his brothers and sisters loved him greatly like a father, right? Which is wonderful. Here.
James and Simon grew up trying to follow Jesus' plan for placating their bellicose and sometimes irate playmates by persuasion and non-resistance, and they were fairly successful. But Joseph and Jude, while ascending to such teachings at home, made haste to defend themselves when assailed by their comrades. In particular, was Jude guilty of violating the spirit of these teachings. But non-resistance was not a rule of the family. No penalty was attached to the violation of personal teachings.
Okay, so Jesus didn't punish Jude for defending himself because that was his own personal choice, right? Which is kind of interesting too, because Jesus would not defend himself at all. Okay, Letch, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. In general, all of the children, particularly the girls, would consult Jesus about their childhood troubles and confide in him just as they would have in an affectionate father.
Okay, so he became in a sense their real father. Rodney, would you take
Yes.
one?
James was growing up to be a well-balanced and even-tempered youth, but he was not so spiritually inclined as Jesus. He was a much better student than Joseph, who, while a faithful worker, was even less spiritual minded. Joseph was a plodder and not up to the intellectual level of the other children. Simon was a well meaning boy, but too much of a dreamer. He was slow in getting settled down in life and was the cause of considerable anxiety to Jesus and Mary. But he was always a good and well intentioned lad. Jude was a firebrand. He had the highest of ideals, but he was unstable in temperament. He had all and more of his mother's determination and aggressiveness, but he lacked much of her sense of proportion and discretion.
It's funny how each child is different in their personality traits, right? And Jude being a firebrand, I was thinking when I went in the Navy, I had a horrible temper. I just blow up at people and just about kill
Really?
them. Yeah,
Short
I'm
fuse?
short fuse, and the Navy got that out of me pretty quickly. You couldn't be that way, when you were under somebody else's thumb all the
No
time.
kidding.
So it was a good thing for me. It was a good thing I went in the Navy. I hurt somebody non-intentionally, so I like the fact of that. Miriam was a well-balanced and level-headed daughter with a keen appreciation of things noble and spiritual. Martha was slow in thought and action, but a very dependable and efficient child. Baby Ruth was the sunshine of the home. Though thoughtless of speech, she was most sincere of heart. She just about worshiped her big brother and father, but they did not spoil her. She was a beautiful child, but not quite so comely as Miriam, who was the belle of the family, if not of the city. So apparently she was very pretty. All right.
As time passed, Jesus did much to liberate and modify the family teachings and practices related to Sabbath observation and many observance. Oh yeah, observation. Okay. And many other phases of religion. And to all these changes, Mary gave heart, hearty assent. By this time, Jesus had become the unquestioned head of the house.
And things it's passed along in this little family. Letch, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. This year, Jude started to school, and it was necessary for Jesus to sell his harp in order to defray these expenses. Thus disappeared the last of his recreational pleasures. He much loved to play the harp when tired in mind and weary in body, but he comforted himself with the thought that at least the harp was saved from seizure by the tax collector.
Well, that must have been rough living in a time where everything personal was capable of being seized by the tax collector.
Phew.
And, as much as Jesus loved to play the harp and everything, he was 19 years old at this point, right? And so he realized that not being back on taxes was more important than his own pleasure, which was, that's part of growing up, right? All right.
Um, it reminds me of David because David played the harp as
Yeah,
well.
he did. You want to take the next one, Rodney?
Yes, 5. Rebecca, the daughter of Ezra. Although Jesus was poor His social standing in Nazareth was in no way impaired. He was one of the foremost young men of the city and very highly regarded by most of the young women. Since Jesus was such a splendid specimen of robust and intellectual manhood, and considering his reputation as a spiritual leader, it was not strange that Rebekah, the eldest daughter of Ezra, a wealthy merchant and trader of Nazareth, should discover that she was slowly falling in love with the son of Joseph. She first confided her affection to Miriam, Jesus' sister, and Miriam in turn talked all this over with her mother. Mary was intensely aroused. Was she about to lose her son, now become the indispensable head of the family? Would troubles never cease? What next could happen? And then she paused to contemplate what effect marriage would have upon Jesus' future career. Not often, but at least sometimes, does she recall the fact that Jesus was a child of promise. After she and Miriam had talked this matter over, they decided to make an effort to stop it before Jesus learned about it by going direct to Rebekah, laying the whole story before her and honestly telling her about their belief that Jesus was the son of destiny, that he was to become a great religious leader, perhaps the Messiah.
Okay, so trouble was afoot, was it not?
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
So Miriam and Mary had to take action. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so this is what happened. Rebecca listened intently. She was thrilled with the recital and more than ever determined to cast her lot with this man of her choice and share his career of leadership. She argued, where's that coming from? She argued to herself that such a man would all the more need a faithful and efficient wife. She interpreted Mary's efforts to dissuade her as a natural reaction to the dread of losing the head and the sole support of the family. But knowing that her father approved of her attraction for the carpenter's son, she rightly reckoned that he would gladly supply the family with sufficient income fully to compensate for the loss of Jesus' earnings. When her father agreed to such a plan, Rebecca had further conferences with Mary and Miriam, and when she failed to win their support, she made bold to go directly to Jesus. This she did with the cooperation of her father, who invited Jesus to their home for the celebration of Rebecca's 17th birthday. So Rebecca was 17 and Jesus was 19. So just the time when, kids want to get married and that sort of thing. So this is what happens next. Diane?
I never wanted to get married.
Eh,
Jesus listened attentively and sympathetically to the recital of these things, first by the father, then by Rebecca herself. He made kindly reply to the effect that no amount of money could take the place of his obligation personally to rear his father's family, to fulfill the most sacred of all human trusts, loyalty to one's own flesh and blood. Rebecca's father was deeply touched by Jesus' words of family devotion and retired from the conference. His only remark to Mary, his wife, was, "We can't have him for a son. He is too noble for us."
wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he knew right off that Jesus was only concerned with his spiritual career that he was supposed to fulfill, and that his plans was not to be married, didn't he? So his father realized it right off, and that's why he said, he's too noble for us. He's got a spiritual goal, and that's what he's going to go with. All right. Letch, would you take the next one?
Okay. And then began that eventful talk with Rebecca. Thus far in his life, Jesus had made little distinction in his association with boys and girls, with young men and young women. His mind had been altogether too much occupied with the pressing problems of practical earthly affairs and the intriguing contemplation of his eventual career about his Father's business, ever to have given serious consideration to the consummation of personal love in human marriage. But now he was face to face with another of those problems which every average human being must confront and decide. Indeed, was he tested in all points, like as you are.
Okay, so he went through the same struggles we do, right? Some of us end up getting married and some of us don't. Some of us wait till we're 59 like I was. Yeah. So I was very particular. Let me put it that way. All right. She's glad I was too. After listening attentively, he sincerely thanked Rebecca for her I'm not up yet, am I?
No, I am.
No, you're not.
No.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Rodney.
After listening attentively, he sincerely thanked Rebecca for her expressed admiration, adding, "It shall cheer and comfort me all the days of my life." He explained that he was not free to enter into relations with any woman other than those of simple brotherly regard and pure friendship. He made it clear that his first and paramount duty was the rearing of his father's family, that he could not consider marriage until that was accomplished. And then he added, "If I am a son of destiny, I must now assume obligations of lifelong duration until such a time as my destiny shall be made manifest."
Okay, y'all think about this for a second. Jesus's life was just like ours. Everything was time bound, right? And we have such a short time here on this earth. And he realized being a son of destiny. In other words, he had a destiny of a mission that he had to wait to become a full manhood, about 30 years old, before he could start it, because he wouldn't be accepted as a young man, right? Preaching and teaching and that sort of thing. So he had to wait till his time came. And in the meantime, he had to finish raising all of his brothers and sisters and take care of his mother, right? So as time goes, this period between his 19th birthday and up to about when he was 30, to Jesus was like a drop in the water of the ocean. It's so small, it's not worth even considering. So he had to put his mission first and his family first above all and any personal feelings he would have had. So he had to be strong in his commitment. That's just all there was to it. So that's, you have to think about those things when you listen to this. Rebecca was heartbroken. She refused to be comforted and importuned her father to leave Nazareth until he finally consented to move to Sepphoris. In after years, to the many men who sought her hand in marriage, Rebecca had but one answer. She lived for only one person, to await the hour when this to her one purpose, to wait the hour when this to her, the greatest man who ever lived, would begin his career as a teacher of living truth. And she followed him devoutly through his eventful years of public labor, being present unobserved by Jesus the day when he rode triumphantly into Jerusalem, and she stood among the other women by the side of Mary on that fateful and tragic afternoon when the Son of Man hung upon the cross. To her, as well as to countless worlds on high, the one altogether lovely and the greatest among 10,000. So she was devoted to him through her entire life.
It's interesting that her family moved just because of this event.
Yeah. She didn't want to be close to him because of her love for him, right? She's afraid it would.
6, his 20th year, AD 14. The story of Rebekah's love for Jesus was whispered about Nazareth and later on at Capernaum, so that while in the years to follow, many women loved Jesus even as men loved him. Not again did he have to reject the personal proffer of another good woman's devotion. From this time on, human affection for Jesus partook more of the nature of worshipful and adoring regard. Both men and women loved him devoutly, and for what he was, not with any tinge of self-satisfaction or desire for affectionate possession. But for many years, whenever the story of Jesus' human personality was recited, the devotion of Rebekah was recounted.
Even in the universe and other worlds, they told the story of Rebecca, right? Okay, Letch, would you take the next one?
Okay. Miriam, knowing fully about the affair of Rebekah and knowing how her brother had forsaken even the love of a beautiful maiden, not realizing the factor of his future career of destiny, came to idealize Jesus and to love him with a touching and profound affection as for a father as well as for a brother.
So she totally respected him, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Rodney?
Although they could hardly afford it, Jesus had a strange longing to go up to Jerusalem for the Passover. His mother, knowing of his recent experience with Rebekah, wisely urged him to make the journey. He was not markedly conscious of it, but what he most wanted was an opportunity to talk with Lazarus and visit with Martha and Mary. Next to his own family, he loved these three most of all.
So he loved the Lazarus and his family, and there's Jerusalem again. He loved all three of them just like they were part of his family. All right. In making this trip to Jerusalem, he went by way of Megiddo, Antipatris, and Lydda, in part covering the same route traveled when he was brought back to Nazareth on the return from Egypt. He spent 4 days going up to the Passover and thought much about the past events which had transpired in and around Megiddo, the international battlefield of Palestine. And there's the journey they took. I mapped out everything. All right.
Jesus passed on through Jerusalem, only pausing to look upon the temple and the gathering throngs of visitors. He had a strange and increasing aversion to the Herod-built temple with its politically appointed priesthood. He wanted most of all to see Lazarus, Martha, and Mary. Lazarus was the same age. Lazarus. Well, anyway, Lazarus was the same age as Jesus and now head of the house. By the time of this visit, Lazarus's, they do it again, mother, Lazarus, I don't know, I have that, Lazarus' mother had also been laid to rest. Oh my. Martha was a little over 1 year older than Jesus, while Mary was 2 years younger. And Jesus was the idolized ideal of all three of them.
Muted. I said they idolize him just like he loved them. Okay, Latch, we can take the next one up.
Okay. On this visit occurred one of those periodic outbreaks of rebellion against tradition, the expression of resentment for those ceremonial practices which Jesus deemed misrepresentative of his Father in heaven. Not knowing Jesus was coming, Lazarus had arranged to celebrate the Passover with friends in an adjoining village down the Jericho road. Jesus now proposed that they celebrate the feast where they were, at Lazarus's house. But, said Lazarus, we have no paschal lamb. And then Jesus entered upon a prolonged and convincing dissertation to the effect that the Father in heaven was not truly concerned with such childlike and meaningless rituals. After solemn and fervent prayer, they rose, and Jesus said, let the childlike and darkened minds of my people serve their God as Moses directed. It is better that they do, but let us who have seen the light of life no longer approach our Father by the darkness of death. Let us be free in the knowledge of the truth of our Father's eternal love.
Is that not beautiful?
Yeah.
There it is.
Rodney, would you take the next one?
That evening about twilight, these four sat down and partook of the first Passover feast ever to be celebrated by devout Jews without the paschal lamb. The unleavened bread and the wine had been ready for this Passover, and these emblems which Jesus termed the bread of life and the water of life, he served to his companions, and they ate in solemn conformity with the teachings just imparted. It was his custom to engage in the sacramental ritual whenever he paid subsequent visits to Bethany. When he returned home, he told all this to his mother. She was shocked at first, but came gradually to see his viewpoint. Nevertheless, she was greatly relieved when Jesus assured her that he did not intend to introduce this new idea of the Passover in their family. At home, with the children, he continued, year by year, to eat the Passover according to the law of Moses.
And he probably did that because he wanted to keep his mother happy, right? I mean, more than anybody
I'm
else.
sure.
It was during this year that Mary had a long talk with Jesus about marriage. She frankly asked him if he would get married if he were free from his family responsibilities. And Jesus explained to her that since immediate duty forbid his marriage, he had given the subject little thought. He expressed himself as doubting that he would enter into the marriage state. He said that all such things must await my hour, the time when my Father's work must begin. Having settled ready in his mind that he was not to become the father of children in the flesh, he gave very little thought to the subject of pre-human marriage. Didn't he do that?
This year he began anew the task of further weaving his mortal and divine natures into a simple and effective human individuality. And he continued to grow in moral status and spiritual understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost like he had a dual personality, a double, but he only had one personality.
Yeah, he did. He was just like every other human in that.
But he was becoming more aware of his divine
of his
nature,
pre-existence, right? Yeah.
and still yet he was mortal, so he had to combine those two.
kind of balance the two out and juggle his own personality, right? Letch, would you take the next one, please?
Okay. Although all their Nazareth property, except their home, was gone, this year they received a little financial help from the sale of an equity in a piece of property in Capernaum. This was the last of Joseph's entire estate. This real estate deal in Capernaum was with the boat builder named Zebedee.
And that name's going to come up a lot, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Zebedee brothers. All right.
Oh, by the way, I like Diane's Lazarus pronunciation.
Lazarus.
I think we got to start a movement for that.
There we go.
Oh, sorry. Joseph graduated at the synagogue school this year and prepared to begin work at the small bench in the home carpenter's shop. Although the estate of their father was exhausted, there were prospects that they would successfully fight off poverty, since 3 of them were now regularly at work.
So they had 3 people working that provided funds instead of just one, right? All right. Jesus is rapidly becoming a man, not just a young man, but an adult. He has learned well to bear responsibility. He knows how to carry on in the face of disappointment. He bears up bravely when his plans are thwarted and purposes temporarily defeated. He has learned how to be fair and just even in the face of injustice. He is learning how to adjust his ideals of spiritual living to the practical demands of earthly existence. He is learning how to plan for the achievement of a higher and distinct goal of idealism while he toils earnestly for the attainment of a near and immediate goal of necessity. He is steadily acquiring the art of adjusting his aspirations to the commonplace demands of the human occasion. He has very nearly mastered the technique of utilizing the energy of the spiritual drive to turn the mechanisms of the material achievement. He is slowly learning how to live the heavenly life while he continues on with the earthly existence. More and more, he depends upon the ultimate guidance of his heavenly Father while he assumes the fatherly role of guiding and directing the children of his earth family. He is becoming experienced in the skillful wrestling of victory from the very jaws of defeat. He is learning how to transform the difficulties of time and the triumphs of eternity. And all I have to say about this, it's stated so well, is the fact that this is our path when we get to the mansion world, y'all. Think of it this way. When we get to the mansion worlds, life doesn't stop and everything becomes just a perfect world. We still have struggles. We still have to do things. And this is exactly the kind of things we have to learn when we get to the mansion world, how to manage our time and do our things in such a way that we have a heavenly existence instead of an earthly existence.
Roger?
Yeah.
That one sentence, he has very nearly mastered the technique of utilizing the energy of the spiritual drive to turn the mechanism of material achievement.
Yeah.
That is a lesson for us.
It is. It is. You know, I keep harping on trying to live a spiritual life, and this is what Jesus did. You know, he worked in the normal things of life, but he did it in a spiritual way, and that's what we're trying to do. You know, it's kind of funny. People ask me, how can you work on this book and all these things we've been doing all the time? And I really do it all the time, from usually 8 in the morning till sometimes 6, 7 at night. And all I can think of for an answer is this. Our spiritual life is so important, and we've been lacking in it in such a way for so long that someone needs to bring it to the forefront. And that's what we try to do, right? That's what the Urantia book was all about, is trying to bring it to the forefront. All right.
It's pretty easy,
Yeah,
with this book.
yeah.
Got
Am I up again?
No, you just read.
I just read.
Yeah.
Okay, that's tonight.
And so it,
Oops, did I miss it? Go ahead. Did I change the thing already? Yeah.
Yes.
yes,
Okay,
you did.
let's go on.
And so as the years pass,
Diane, you're muted.
I am so sorry. Well, I'm really goofing up tonight. Let's see. Oh, sorry. And so, as the years pass, this young man of Nazareth continues to experience life as it is lived in mortal flesh on the worlds of time and space. He lives a full, representative, and replete life on Urantia. He left this world ripe in the experience which has creatures pass through. He left this world ripe in the experience which his creatures pass through during the short and strenuous years of their first life, the life in the flesh. And life in the flesh is hard. And all this human experience is an eternal possession of the universe sovereign. He is our understanding, brother, sympathetic friend, experienced sovereign, and merciful Father.
Passages in this book. It's unreal. Okay, Latch, would you read for us again?
Yeah. As a child, he accumulated a vast body of knowledge. As a youth, he sorted, classified, and correlated this information. And now, as a man of the realm, he begins to organize these mental possessions preparatory to utilization in his subsequent teaching, ministry, and service in behalf of his fellow mortals on the world and on all other spheres of habitation throughout the entire universe of Nebuchadnezzar.
All right, so he's preparing everybody by living this life for us. All right, Rodney.
Born into the world a babe of the realm, he has lived his childhood life and passed through the successive stages of youth and young manhood. He now stands on the threshold of full manhood, rich in the experience of human living, replete in the understanding of human nature, and full of sympathy for the frailties of human nature. He is becoming expert in the divine art of revealing his Paradise Father to all ages and stages of mortal creatures.
So he's well on his way to fulfilling his mission, isn't he? So, okay. And now, as a full grown man, an adult of the realm, he prepares to continue his supreme mission of revealing God to man and leading men to God. That was his mission, right? Okay. And next time we'll go into Jesus's early manhood. Okay. Let me change the share to one. Okay, that's our prayer of acceptance. Lutch, would you like to read this for us tonight?
Sure. Prayer of acceptance. I believe that God is my Paradise Father, and that only by faith am I saved. No sacrifice is necessary. By this same faith, I became a child of God, and know that all men and women are my brothers and sisters. We know the Son of God, the sovereign of our universe of Nebuchadnezzar, as Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. By allowing the will of God to become my will, I will someday stand in the presence of the Paradise Father. In the name of Christ Michael, Jesus of Nazareth, amen.
Okay. That's it for tonight. It's kind of funny that stop. Yeah, it does. It's kind of funny that chapter 7. I mean, the seventh meeting we had on the origins and destiny of origins of and destiny of human reality. Whatever it was. Well, during that meeting, we discussed this prayer and changing, making adjustments to it. And it's kind of interesting because when I did the podcast for this, the automatic thing pulled that out and said, how the group worked together and this, and we came up with this prayer together as a group. So it was kind of interesting that I just did that this week.
Yeah, that's the part I read.
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny how the things you do end up paying dividends into the future, doesn't it? So really does. Okay, so this is what? This Tuesday is Thursday. Thursday we'll meet. I will have a meeting on Saturday at 6:00 for whoever comes, and then we'll take up the next chapter, 128, on Tuesday. Yeah, Jesus' early manhood. Okay, so I'm glad y'all all came. Thank you for coming. Thank you for all that came out and listened to us online tonight in the podcast. I hope someone listened to us. I didn't even look to see if we had any comments or anything tonight. So
thank you, Roger.
You're welcome. We'll get this out to everybody by tomorrow sometime.
Are you going to turn off the recording and share that thing with us?
Oh, yes. You want to hear the?
Well, I wanted to see.
You wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, let me stop the recording here though first. All right. Live stream. Stop the live stream. Let me stop recording over here.